Uh, Going into the next topic, we will listen to a discussion on surety bond issues. And to deliver the next paper on this topic, we have the chairperson of PIRA's Technical Committee on Surety. The flowers are for you. She is the bonds division head of BPI-MS Insurance Corporation, and she is also a member of the company's change management team for ISO certification. Prior to being the bonds division head, she held several positions, including Assistant Vice President for Agency Management, Corporate Planning, and Training Director. She can't wait to go up. Please welcome Ms. Melinda Natividad.
Some property underwriters have mentioned to me the fear they have of underwriting bonds. There's not much to it, really. And this is going to be a process of demystifying the process of underwriting bonds. Okay. What are the key differences between underwriting bonds and underwriting insurance? The first difference is in the law of large numbers. The law of large numbers works well in insurance. Mitch was telling me to look this way. I was looking that way. Oh, I think I prefer to look that way. So the law of large numbers works well in insurance. You have 1 million cars, several million houses. In bonds, you don't have that number. So the law of large numbers is something that was adopted from the statisticians, the probability theory. The insurers adopted it and decided to make it work for them to make a profit in insurance. It's possible for us to make a profit because of the law of large numbers. And what does it say? It states that the larger the number of homogeneous risks that an insurance company has, the more predictable the results will be. More simply put, the larger the pool of risks written by a company, the more predictable the amount of losses will be in a given period. Your loss ratio becomes more predictable. So the company who has insured 50,000 cars will have an easier time predicting loss ratios rather than a company has only 5,000 cars. In the case of bonds, how many contractors do we have versus the number of vehicles we have insured? And so since the law of large numbers is very difficult to operate in bonds, we have to make sure that every bond that we write is well underwritten. Okay? And that brings us to the second difference between bonds and insurance. The second is, keeps on coming back. The practice of underwriting bonds is somewhere between insurance and banking. Some insurance principles help, but the 3 C's of credit evaluation have to be applied in bonding. That's character, capacity, and capital. That's what the bankers always do. There's only 3 C's: character, capacity, capital. The next one. The arrows are in the reverse, sorry. Okay. So that brings us to our first bond underwriting practice, and that is to approach the bond application like a business analyst. many companies hire an underwriter because she's a lawyer, and that's good because you have to look at the minutiae. You have to look at the fine print. The contract has to be well read, or the court order has to be understood. But there are also business risks involved. So some companies hire an underwriter because they can approach the bond application like a business analyst, like the bankers do. A bonds underwriter has to analyze the business, check the business plan. Sometimes he has no choice but to talk to the chief financial officer or the president of the company to look at the innards of the company and check how the business ticks. What's the strategy? Where does it get the funding? Where does it get the cash flow? What's the debt to equity ratio? So it's good if the financial analysis can be done in the bonds department, not in the accounting department. Okay, so much for approaching the business like a business analyst. The second difference is to make use of the Philippine Contractors Association Board, Accreditation Board. So you can make use of the PCAB classifications to make your life easier. The PCAB, or the Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board, is like the Insurance Commission. It's the one that grants the licenses, issues, suspends, revokes. It can issue a writ of injunction if you do a project which is not within the specifications of your license. Okay? So it can also impose fines, much like the Insurance Commission does. Technical glitch. Sorry for this. Can I just wing it? Okay. The PCAB license, there are three general classifications. The first one is the general engineering license. Under the general engineering license, you have the wet risks, what the property underwriters call the wet risks. So you have the dams, the hydroelectrics, we have water treatment plants, irrigation, that's under the general engineering. And then the second license will be the general contractor's license, which allows you to do buildings, factories, playgrounds, and then the third would be the specialty contractor. The specialty contractor, it ranges all the way from structural steel foundation to mechanical, electrical, plumbing. If you have a plumbing license, that doesn't give you the license to build a dam. If you have waterproofing license, that doesn't give you a license to build a bridge. So it's as simple as that. Okay? Now, aside from the different license classifications, you also have what we call categories. So these categories can range from AAA, AA, single A, all the way to D. And then for specialty, you have an additional category, which is what you call trade category. And how are they categorized? The criteria used to be this one: financial capacity, equipment capacity, the experience of the firm. And if you don't find sufficient experience as far as the firm is concerned, you have to take a look at the experience of the technical personnel. Okay. The problem with the PCAB license is that sometimes there's a time lag. There's a time lag between the actual licensing and the time that you actually built up your capacity for larger projects. Because of that time lag, it's good for the underwriter to be able to do an evaluation of her own. So you do the evaluation it's a bit more difficult because you can't rely on, what, 2 minutes? Oh. Okay. Okay, I go to the third one, which is the negative database. A lot of you are affiliated with the banks. You can tap into the negative database of the bank. What is a negative database? It's a database which gives you the information about negative activities of the client, the corporation, or the individual. If he has bouncing checks, estafa, unpaid credit cards, it comes out in the negative database. And it's good to use it because if there are too many estafa or bouncing check cases, then it could be an indicator that you should reject the bond applicant. Okay. So much for the negative database. Now we'll go to the next one, which is to monitor the accumulations per contractor. Ensuring the long-term stability of the company is the most critical role of the underwriter. I'm sure you all agree with me. And if the underwriter fails to spot his accumulations, then he could cause the bankruptcy of his company. Therefore, it should be the first instinct of the underwriter to take a look at all his risks and see where his accumulations will come from. So if you property underwriters take a look at Cresta zones or your block exposures, where should we look? Where will our bond accumulations come from? They will come from the projects of a single contractor which we have bonded and whose bonds are still in force. They will come from all the undertakings of a single client that we have bonded and if the bonds have not been canceled yet. So the underwriter can take a look at exposures on 3 levels. The first is exposure to the bond itself. So the maximum possible loss is the bond amount if there is 0 completion of the project. The second will be the exposure of all the bonds for the project. After the bid is closed, at the commencement of the project, there are normally 3 bonds, 2 or 3. You have the advance payment bond, the performance bond, and the payment bond. And the maximum possible loss will be the sum total of all these 3 bonds if there is 0 accomplishment. And then the final exposure level is exposure to the contractor. A few, not all, of the bonding companies nowadays take a look at the accumulations on a per-contractor basis. So they have identified their single risk, not the bond, not the project, but the contractor. Because each bonding company normally bonds several projects of a single contractor. What if that contractor goes bankrupt? Your intention could be that your maximum loss will be only 1 bond amount. But there could be several projects that blew up because this contractor went bankrupt. In that case, your retention can be higher than what you had intended. Your loss ratio could shoot up and you could affect the stability of your company. Some of the bonding companies take a lot of comfort in the fact that we have been getting very good loss ratios, industry loss ratios in bonds. Some have 0 loss ratios, some have negative loss ratios. They make use of bonds in order to push up their profits. But there are some underwriters who have taken the path of caution. So they think that taking a look at what has happened in the past, Lehman Brothers, Barings, some of our most revered institutions, if they could go under, how could it not be possible for the contractors that we bond? Okay, so that brings us to our next. Okay, the next one is to check the 3 C's of the obligee. Our client is the principal. The beneficiary is the obligee. The obligee is the project owner. The project owner or the government unit who has required the bond. Sometimes it's necessary to take a look at who the obligee is. It is possible to decline a bond because of the obligee. I have done it a few times in the course of my underwriting. The obligee it's possible that he is not competent. He keeps on changing the specifications of the project simply because he couldn't make up his mind. He could be unreasonable. He could refuse to pay the progress billings. And he could refuse to cancel the bond, even if the undertaking has already been completely satisfied. It is amazing how I think there are 60 bonding companies in the Philippines. There are only about 6 who agree to do business with customs because of the difficulty of securing cancellations for customs bonds, in spite of the undertaking having been completely satisfied. Okay, so I'll just recapitulate. First, these are the bond underwriting practices. First, approach the bond application as a business analyst. Second, use information from PCAB to make your life easier. Third, tap the negative database of your partner bank. Fourth, monitor the accumulations per contractor. And fifth, check the 3 C's of the obligee. Sixth, more next year. This is not a complete list, by no means. There are many more, but with this, we hope we have started demystifying the practice of bonds underwriting.